Arturia and her counterparts. When it comes to Arturia and her counterparts, the relationship between all of them can be a mixed batch. For example, the mysterious heroines want to rid Chaldea of all the Arturias, aside from Arturia Lily, while Arturia Lily is nice to every one of her counterparts. However, despite their differences, there are two things they all have in common with each other. One is their hatred of Archer Gilgamesh, who constantly tries to ask any of them out for marriage, which ends in disaster of course. And the other is their love for Shirou. And when something bad happens or will happen to Shirou, all differences and past rivalries are swept aside as they talk about the threat and join together to protect him. Arturia was running towards a certain room. As she did, she came into the room, which was filled with her counterparts. "HM? Is there something wrong, me? You seem to be exhausted," Arturia Lily said. For a moment, Arturia was gathering breath before she let out one sentence that made everyone freak out. "Everyone, Morgan's back," she said. At that moment, Arturia's counterparts immediately stopped what they were doing. "Well, this calls for an emergency meeting immediately," Arturia Alter said. "Indeed," everyone else said in unison. Soon, Arturia and her counterparts began to clear out the room they were using and started to add in tables, chairs, and a bunch of other things. By the time when they were done reorganizing the room they were in, the room itself looked like a meeting room for a top-tier business company. As they were done, Arturia and her counterparts began to sit in a chair they chose. "All right, let us begin this meeting. As I mentioned earlier, we now have a huge problem to deal with," Arturia said. "You mean Morgan, correct?" Arturia Lily asked. "Yes. And furthermore, she had her own set of knights as well." At that moment, Castor Arturia decided to join into the conversation. "Were there 3 people as her set of knights?" she asked. "Yes. Do you who they are?" Castor Arturia let out a long sigh. "Yeah. The big knight is Fairy Knight Gawain, known as Barghest. The gloomy knight is Fairy Knight Tristan, also known as Balban Sith, and the small knight is known as Fairy Knight Lancelot, known as Meliacine." At that moment, Arturia and her counterparts beside the mysterious heroines and idols looked at her shock. "Barghest? Balban Sith? Meliacine? They're fairies from Fey legends." Archer Arturia yelled. "Yeah. And judging by what you said earlier, the Morgan that Master happened to summon happens to be the one from my timeline," Castor Arturia continued. Everyone was silent for a moment until Arturia continued the conversation. "What is the Morgan in your timeline like?" she asked. "Well, since in my timeline I didn't pull Caliban from the stone, I didn't become king of Britain. Instead, Morgan became the ruler of Britain. However, there was one huge difference between my world and your world." "What?" Lancer Arturia Alter asked. "In my world, Britain was known as the fairy kingdom of Britain, where humanity is, well, treated as cattle since humanity couldn't reproduce themselves and fairies were the dominant race of the entire country. They were treated as slaves and were kept on ranches until given to a fairy to be their owner." Everyone was in shock upon hearing Castor Arturia's words. "That's horrible," Arturia Lily said. "Yeah, and Morgan ruled Britain with an iron fist. She conquered Britain by defeating the 6 fairy clans with her black magic, uniting them by force." Arturia Alter let out a sigh. "Well, looks like the Morgan from your world is quite similar to ours." "Yeah. That way of ruling, it seems to fit her personality since she likes to rule over other people that way. And to think that she would be able to put those 3 together as her version of the Knights of the Round," Lancer Arturia Alter said. "Yeah. Not only that, but she also mastered how to use Rongaminiad as a use of magecraft," Castor Arturia said. Lancer Arturia Alter, and Ruler Arturia looked at Caster Arturia with shock. You're kidding me. She's able to use Rangominiad? Ruler Arturia asked. Yeah. Caster Arturia replied. Geez, this is going to be more difficult than I thought. To think Morgan would be able to use Rangominiad as magecraft, that's unbelievable, Lancer Arturia said. You can say that again. Anyways, as mentioned earlier, it seems that my world's version of Morgan has arrived here in Chaldea, judging by my saber counterpart's words, Caster Arturia said. Yeah, and you won't believe what happened when she arrived in Chaldea, Arturia said. What? Caster Arturia asked. Arturia let out a sigh before continuing the conversation. She called Master her husband. At that moment, Arturia's counterpart's jaws dropped. What? Are you serious? They yelled in unison. Yeah. As much as I don't want to believe it, but she actually called Master her husband. And furthermore, when me and Mordred saw her, Mashu and a few others were knocked out as well, Arturia repeated. All of Arturia's counterparts let out a collective groan. Geez, calling Master her husband, what is she thinking? Arturia muttered. This is Morgan we're talking about. Remember? The same woman that plotted the downfall of Camelot? We don't even know her intentions right now, writer Arturia Alter said. Exactly. Who knows what she's planning right now while we're having this meeting? Santa Arturia Alter said. Indeed. She sounds like a bad person that should not be with Shirou, Mysterious Heroine X said. Exactly. She exactly sounds like the Space Witch Morgan from our universe, Mysterious Heroine X Alter said. Indeed. Speaking of which, all of us should keep a watchful eye on Morgan, Mysterious Heroine XX said. I have no clue what all of you are talking about, but Morgan sounds like a bad person. Mysterious Idol X Alter said. Trust me, she really is a bad person, Arturia said with a sigh. Anyways, now that Morgan's here, all of us need to be wary of her. Yeah, especially if she tries to make a move on Shirou, Arturia Alter said angrily. Arturia sighed again. Yeah, about that, we may have a problem with that. Everyone turned to Arturia for a moment. What do you mean? They asked in unison, and in a creepy way. Well, regrettably, when Morgan arrived here and me and Mordred saw her, by some coincidence, Shirou happened to be there when Mordred said that Shirou is her new mother. What happened next was that Morgan came up to Shirou and inspected him. All of Arturia's counterparts groaned at Arturia's words. Oh no. Please tell me nothing bad happened afterwards. They grumbled. Arturia let out a sigh. Luckily, nothing bad happened later as me and Mordred managed to stop her before she could do anything further. However, before she left, she said Shirou was an interesting person. Arturia's non-altered counterparts gulped at Arturia's last words while a dark aura appeared around her altered counterparts. Oh no. If she said that Shirou is interesting, then, this is bad. Arturia's non-altered counterparts thought in fear. Morgan, if you plan on hurting Shirou or taking him away from me, you will P-A-Y-Y-Y-Y-Y-Y-Y-Y. Arturia's altered counterparts thought in anger. Upon seeing the reactions from both groups, Arturia decided to end the conversation in fear. Okay everyone, let's not think about that right now. Who knows what plans Morgan might have for Shirou, and it will probably make all of us sick if we think about it. Who agrees with me? Arturia asked. Arturia's counterparts nodded in agreement. Yes. Let's not think about this ever again, they yelled in unison. Good. For now, our plan to keep Morgan away from Shirou is to spend more time with him. Agreed? Arturia asked. Yes. Arturia's counterparts said in unison. Arturia let out a sigh of relief. Good. For a moment, Arturia and her counterparts were silent as they were taking a break from all of the yelling about the issue of Morgan arriving in Chaldea and the fears of what plans she may have for both Ritsuka and Shirou. As they were taking a break, it was then Arturia Lily had a suggestion. Hey, now that we're all together, should all of us have a conversation together? She asked innocently. For a moment, nobody didn't say anything, making Arturia Lily said for a little. Sorry. However, it was then Mysterious Heroine X began to continue the conversation. Nah, let's continue. So, what do you want to talk about? Actually, I don't have anything to talk about. I just came up with the idea, Arturia Lily meekly said. Mysterious Heroine X let out a sigh. I see, well then, I have something to say. What is it? Well, for starters, and it's been bothering me for quite a while, that how is it that there are so many people with the same face as me? I mean, come on. Ekin, her future self, and my future self I can understand, but the others? This is ridiculous, she ranted. Arturia Lily let out a chuckle while everyone else sighed. There it is, X's usual rants about us, and the others that look like us. Everyone aside from X thought in unison. X, I know that you've been ranting about this issue for quite a while, but don't you think it may have been a giant coincidence that there are others with the same face as us? Arturia Lily asked. Like hell, all of this is a giant coincidence. There must be some bigger plot behind this. X argued. Ehe, looks like we're in for a long rant again. Arturia Lily thought. Speaking of issues, there's one issue I want to speak out about, Arturia Alter said. What issue would that be? Arturia asked. Arturia Alter let out a long sigh. Archer Gilgamesh. At that moment, all of Arturia's counterparts, including her, immediately groaned upon hearing the archer's name. Him again? Lancer Arturia Alter groaned. Yeah. That guy is persistent, like a cockroach. He keeps approaching me at every turn wherever I go. Arturia Alter muttered. You can say that again. He tried to capture me last Christmas by staying up past midnight, waiting for me on that throne of his, Santa Arturia Alter said. Again? Geez, talk about persistence. Can't he learn how to give up? Archer Arturia yelled. I wish that would be the case, but sadly no. His obsession with all of us may as well last until the end to time, writer Arturia Alter said. Gilgamesh, is that the guy with the golden hair, armor, and talks like an arrogant spoiled brat? Mysterious Idol X Alter asked. Yup. You met him? Arturia asked. Mysterious Idol X Alter let out a groan. Yeah. And you want to know what he said the first time he saw me? Silence occurred. He wanted to buy me and my services with a lot of money that came from some weird portals of his, Mysterious Idol X Alter continued. Everyone groaned at that moment. Not again. Writer Arturia Alter muttered in annoyance. Let me guess. He did that before to any of you? Mysterious Idol X Alter asked. Yeah. When I was Shirou's maid for a few days, the King of Heroes tried to buy me and my services, writer Arturia Alter replied. I see. So, what happened next? Well, in response to his ridiculous actions, I kicked his ass. Right in front of his counterparts as well. You could have seen the look on their faces. They looked very disappointed at him, writer Arturia Alter replied proudly. Ha! He deserved that beating, Arturia Alter said. You can say that again. Sadly though, he never learns. Lancer Arturia Alter said. Indeed. Even after Shirou arrived in Chaldea, his pursuit of us never stopped. Rather, I think it's even larger than before, Lancer Arturias said. You can say that again. Ruler Arturias grumbled as she remembered the many times Archer Gilgamesh tried to hit on her. Quickly, she dismissed those memories from her mind. Well, I'm glad that Shirou's here to make things better. Indeed, Arturias said with a smile on her face, which her counterparts had the same expression on their faces as well. Anyways, I think this emergency meeting has come to an end. Are there any more complaints or questions? Arturias' counterparts nodded sideways, signaling that they were done with the meeting. Very well, this meeting is now over. And thus, the meeting between Arturia and her counterparts were over, and they now have one common goal: keeping Shirou away from Morgan as much as possible.